Hello students, in chapter 8 application layer our next topic is HTTP. HTTP is an application layer protocol and it is very important protocol. When you want to browse anything from the web browser in your host computer, then HTTP comes into picture. Let's see. Mainly it is a web application layer protocol and the port number of this is 80. Port number of this is 80. Mainly HTTP, when you browse something from the computer or you want to do anything like chatting type of things, then client and server paradigm comes into picture, and there HTTP play a role in sending the request and mainly for delivery the correct response to the particular host or particular service or process. It follow the client server model. HTTP mainly defines you how you access the web page from the web or retrieve some data from the web page. Okay, on the web, it is mainly define you how you retrieve or access web page. This is the main responsibility of the HTTP protocol, means how you access on the website and retrieve some information from the web page. Means the access mechanism is styled by the HTTP from the web. Mainly HTTP client send a request and HTTP server returns a response. For example, these are the two clients. These are two clients. They want to access from some website or want to retrieve some data from this server. They send an HTTP request and the server will give them a response or send the response to the client particular. HTTP request and HTTP response. This is a client server paradigm comes into picture. Okay. Next here is the important part. Here is HTTP uses the TCP services. Very important concept and questions are so many times. HTTP uses the services of TCP. TCP services means on the port number 80. On the port number 80 means when HTTP is using the service of TCP. TCP is a client connection oriented protocol. Connection oriented protocol means we need to set up a connection, data transfer phase, and after that you need to terminate the connection. In the same way, when we are using the HTTP protocol, all these things are happening in steps. HTTP client initiate TCP connection, create a socket. In the transport layer, we already learned the concept of socket. Mainly, socket is the combination of IP address plus the port number. IP address plus the port number. This one is define the particular services which you want to use or the process is running in your computer, or it's mainly differentiate the your connection on the server. Mainly differentiate your connection on the server, because so many processes are running simultaneously in your computer. You want to use a service from the server for a particular process. That's why you need to differentiate your connection of the processes to the server. If you not differentiate these connections of the processes, then the wrong delivery will be happen between the processes. That's why we need some particular identifier which can identify our processes on the computer or connection of the processes on in the host computer. Okay, we use the socket address, and that socket address makes a particular connection which is representing this is the particular connection for the particular process that's contain the IP is identify the computer, port number is identify the host process, and the combination of this one is identify the connection of the process to the server. And server will also have a clear idea. You need to send the response to that particular client process. HTTP client initiate TCP connection. Here you see this is the initiate the TCP connection. Initiate the TCP connection. Send a connection request. And here the server will send the response. Connection response. And here the connection is set up. Then server accept the TCP connection and send server. Now the data transfer phase will take place. Here the data transfer phase will take place. In this phase, HTTP send the request of the web page or the document and get the particular response for that web page. Means you get the document or the streaming of the videos, audios and these things. HTTP message between the browser of your computer, that is your HTTP client, and between the web server, that is the HTTP server. And after this one, you need to close the connection, and that connection termination phase will take place. Connection termination phase will take place. Okay, that's why we are saying TCP HTTP is a TCP oriented protocol, or using the TCP services by setting up the connection and by terminating the connection after the data transfer. And one very important concept is HTTP is a stateless protocol. Stateless protocol means the server is maintaining no information about the client history. Every time a request from the HTTP client is a new request for the HTTP server. Okay, that's why we are saying HTTP is a stateless protocol. Next, mainly two types of connections are working in HTTP. Two types of connection. One is a non-persistent connection, we call this one is HTTP version 1.0, and second is persistent connection, we call this HTTP version 1.1. By default, we are using HTTP version 1.1, that is persistent connections. Persistent connections by default. Let's see these two connections one by one. Non-persistent connection. Non-persistent connection means you need every time a new connection between the source and client and the server client. In a non-persistent connection, one TCP connection is made for each request and response. Means every time you want some service from the server or you want to access a web page from the server, you need to maintain a separate connection for each request. You need to maintain a separate connection for each web page or each request. The following list will happen in this strategy. Here we see we want to download two files from the or access two files from the server, and both files are on the same server. First file we need to set up a connection. Here the connection setup will take place. Connection setup will take place. First connection setup will take place here. You see, connection setup will take place. Then the request will be fulfilled by the server. Means your particular file will be provided by server to you in response, and then connection termination phase will take place. Means here only one request is satisfied. Only one request is satisfied. Okay. At most one object sent by the TCP server on your client connection. If you want to access second file, you need to make a new connection for this second file. And here you see the connection setup phase will take place, and then the client send the HTTP request and the client server will send the HTTP response. Here the data transfer phase take place, and after fulfilling this request the connection termination phase will take place. Means for every request, first you need to set up the connection to the server, and then after the request is fulfilled by the server, you need to the connection termination also. And the second time if you want any request for the server, then again you need to set up a connection to the server. Data transfer phase will take place and connection termination phase will take place. If you want to download 10 particular files, then 10 times you need a separate connection for each request. Okay, means this is an overhead between the client and server communication. This is totally an overhead. This will increase our delay times. Okay, so important note here is if you want to download multiple objects, we require multiple connections, because every time you need a new connection. This is a disadvantage of the non-persistent connection. So that's why we are saying the overhead is coming into picture when we are set up a communication between the client and server. Because of these all things comes into picture that time during the data transfer phase or during the connection setup or termination phase. Next is the persistent connection. Persistent connection is used by default in our systems. Let's see. In persistent connection, only one TCP connection is made for the multiple requests or for the complete data transfer communication. Only one time you need to set up a connection. After that, your data transfer will take place. If you want to download 10 files, you send your request, get response, send request for the second file, you get response, request for the third file. And when your communication is completed, then you make a connection termination request and connection termination will take place. TCP connection open to a server all the time. Here you set up the connection. Here the connection setup phase take place. After that, your data transfer phase will take place, and you want to number of requests you send. If the client is not sending the request to the server and connection is not terminating, that connection is also opened. That connection is also opened if the connection is not terminated. TCP connection open to a server. Okay, server leaves the connection open after sending the response. From both sides, if there is no communication is happening and connection is also not terminating, then connection is open from both sides, from the client side as well as from the server side. And you can download multiple objects on a single TCP connection between the client and server. You not need to make a separate request for each request, only a single request for the complete data transfer or for the complete communication. And when your communication is complete, you need to terminate the connection at last. Okay, here important note is only one. If you want to download multiple objects or multiple requests, only one TCP connection is needed. Because of these things, a less overhead in our communication between the client and server. Very less overhead. Okay. So this is the main difference between the non-persistent and the persistent connections. And in GATE exams, so many questions are asked on this persistent and non-persistent type of connections. Okay, so that's why I'm saying you please be careful and understand each and every point for the persistent and non-persistent connection. Next, we see here the HTTP client sent a request and the HTTP server sent a response. Means some message exchange is happening between the client and the server. Message transfer is happening between the client and the server. So how you differentiate? This is a request message from the client and this is a response message. For that we have different formats of the client and request message and the response message. Mainly two types of message. One is a request message and second is the response message. Request message format is this one. Here we have a request line. This request line first contains the method. Because which type of service you want from the server or what you want to do in this connection with the server. You just want a file, you want to post a web page on the server, or want to download some web page from the server, or you just want some properties or metadata information from the server, or you want to trace some path or information from the server, or want to delete any web page. These type of activities are comes into picture in the HTTP client request. That's why we are mentioning here the method. And next is URL. URL is the address for the particular web page. URL is the combination of host name as well as the path name. Second is version. Version is representing here which type of connection you are using in HTTP. You are using 1.0 non-persistent connection or 1.1 persistent connection. And after that, these are the header lines. Header lines means which type of activity you want to do. And this is a blank line. There is no information present here. And here the body of your request message or the data you want to send. And in the response message, this first line is the status line. First line is the status line. Status lines means your server is giving what type of response to you. What is the status of your request on the server process? Okay. Here first is version. Version means which type of connection from the server side. Is this a persistent connection or non-persistent connection? Second is status code. Status code gives us idea about the service provided by the server. Means your information or the request is fulfilled in which way, or what is the status on the server process for your request. Okay, and these the remaining part is same for both the request message as well as the response message. First we will see about the method in the request message, and then we will see about the status codes in the response message. So method field in the request are containing mainly 8 type of methods. 8 type of methods. First is get. Get method is mainly used when you want to send a request to the server. It contains means the body of the message is empty this time. There is no information is present in the request message body. Only the particular request line contain the information and the header lines contain the information. Second is head method. Head method is used when a client needs the metadata information about any web page. Metadata information from the web page. Then the head method is comes into picture. Okay. What type of things is modified by in the last time, or what are the updates done at the server side on any type of web page. When we want this type of metadata information, then head method is used. Next is put. Put method is comes into picture when your client want to post something on the web server. When your client want to post a web page or add any web page in the website, or want to do some updation in the particular web page in their services, means post a new web page on the server if the client have the permission or authority to do some changes. Okay. Next is the post. It is used to send some information to the server to be added to the web page or modify. Here we add new web page, new page on the website, and here we want to update or modify some info. Modification will take place in the post method. Next is trash method. Trash method, as we all know, trash is mainly about the anything. If you want to debug things, and if you want to do debugging type of things, then trash method is comes into picture. Next is method is delete. Delete method when a particular person or the client want to delete a web page on the server. Delete when a client want to delete some web page on the server. Next is connect. This is mainly made as a server method. When you want to do some proxy type of things, you are using the Tor browser, then you want to do a proxy things. Okay, you want to do proxy things, then this is a reserved type of methods, means reserve this connection for us. Next is options. Options means if you want to do or want to know about the properties of the web page, or which type of web page is this, or want to download the code and these things about the web page, means we want to know some information about the web page, information about the web page. Then time options picture, options method is comes into the picture. These are the main 8 methods for the request message in the HTTP request. Okay, so next we will discuss about the status codes in the response method. Mainly status code is very important in the response method or response message, because HTTP server sometimes find the particular request web page, sometimes not find the particular web page, or the address defined by the particular client to access the web page is not correct path, or you send your HTTP client send a request and that request is successful or send a successful response to the client. So these type of things happen in the response at the server sides. That's why we are saying we need to maintain some status about the request or the response in the server sides. So mainly status codes have the status about the request. The request is fulfilled, not fulfilled, some problem occur, or these type of things. So it is mainly about a 3-digit number. 3-digit number. Let's see about, if the answer is 100, this is an informational thing. It is an informational thing. If this is 200, the message is okay. Okay means your request is successfully exit on the server and you get a correct response. Next is 300. 300 means you send a request and that request is not fulfilled by this server, and this one is redirecting you to the another URL or some link between the web page. That time we are using 300. 301 is moved permanently. Moved permanently means you requested a web page and that web page is not stored now, and this is on the some different location. This is updated or shifted on some different location. That time the 301 is comes into picture. 301 status is come into picture. 400. 400 is for some bad request. Bad request means you request a message, but that request, your request is not understood by the server. Have some confusion about the request or some error in the client request. 404. 404 means not found. Means you send request for the particular web page or the document, but that document is not present on the server, or that document is not present on the web, or you have no permission to get access to that web page. That time 404 not found is shown in it. Sometimes you see you want to access some information or access some data or access a site which is not permitted, which means that you have no permission to access to that website. Your browser will show you 404 not found. 404 not found. So that's time, this is the status of the request sent by to you to the particular server. Next is 500. 500 will show when there is a error at the server side. There is a error at the server side. 505 is status is comes into picture when the HTTP version is not supported by the server. So these are the status about the request of the client and sending the response of the client. So this is all about the HTTP protocol. In HTTP protocol, first we see HTTP request, HTTP client send a request and then get a response. Then type of connection, non-persistent type of connection and persistent type of connection. Which one is better? Which one, the connection which give less overhead is the better connection between the client and server. Next we discuss about the HTTP request message format and what is the role of method in the HTTP request line. Then we see the HTTP response format and the status line, and what is the main role of status code in the request status line in the HTTP response message. So these are the all important points related to HTTP, and questions are all was asked in the very different manners. They ask you about persistent connection is better or non-persistent connection is better. They give you a question, which one is the correct or choose the correct command of the HTTP. Correct command means they ask you about the method in the request message, or they give you like 400 is given in the status code or in the status line of the response message. What is the meaning of this one, or choose the correct meaning of this one. These type of questions asked in your HTTP topic in your exams, and questions are asked in ISRO, NET, NILET are simple and very simple. If you know a little bit knowledge about the HTTP things, then you can it is very easy for you to answer the questions. So thank you.